AI everywhere. And I'm having today Carla Engelbrecht. And actually, she is, her chapter is extremely important because she handles kids. And this is actually a topic that every mother and everyone should focus on the future, will have to listen and read this chapter. So, Carla, please introduce yourself to everyone.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, no, so excited. And so I love the work this group is doing. It's just so important, so needed. So thank you. So I am Dr. Carla Engelbrecht. I have spent the last 25-ish years creating all sorts of entertainment and education media for kids and families. So with Netflix, Sesame Street, PBS Kids, Highlights for Children, a lot of the classic American children's media companies, but also companies that are known around the world. And I have a doctorate in education. So I really think a lot about this intersection of learning and technology, learning and screens. And now in the world of AI, I've always worked in forms of machine learning and personalized learning. But now really the last couple of years with generative AI making its way into the world, I spend a lot of time both creating content with AI to really understand what's possible to make it educational, but then also do a lot of work around AI literacy, for creators, for parents, for educators, because there's a lot of slop and junk that you can make. And that's why this conversation is so critical and so needed.
It is. You mentioned it's like what's fascinating that you work with Sesame Street and actually a lot of work on Netflix.
Yeah.
So this is actually because Sesame Street is actually overlap with many generations, not just new kids. It's like many kids. It's like I watch it. Um, do you want to highlight any of your like what is the difference between the AI animations as the current one and actually the original, or how the industry used to follow in terms with education or anything related to children?
Yeah. So it has always been possible to make bad content, right? Like that actually in many ways has never changed. You could always just make something terrible, but the barrier to making something terrible was really high. So if you wanted to make, animation for kids, you had to understand writing the scripts. You had to animate. So you had to be able to draw. You had to be able to animate. You had to record voiceover. You needed music. You needed sound effects. All of these things that generally very few people could do on their own, and certainly very difficult to do on your own well. So you needed a team, you needed resources, you needed funding, you needed software, you needed all of these things to be able to do it well. And so that helped us be in a world where most of the content that came out for kids, and really most of the content around the world, was good by some definition. But now with AI, the barrier to entry is so low that it's, just click, 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 click. And that now if you don't know what you're doing, means you can create all sorts of terrible content. And because of the ease of which it is to publish. So again, the barrier to reaching people is so low with social media that we're also in this place now where you can make something terrible really fast and then you can push it out to lots of people really easily. And that's the big difference we're dealing with for creators.
Actually, it's so true because when you create something, the problem is people miss the message they are delivering, and the message can actually be different to depend on culture, depends on race. Everyone's going to receive it differently, and this is actually with the new tools that make it everything easy. They will actually lost it completely when it comes to message. Okay, in your chapter, you mentioned the slop, especially for children. So define slop for children and how this is the low quality children media is affecting the education in with the new toddler or under age of 8. You said they affect the cognitive barrier. So if you could talk more about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it affects kids older than 8, but the part of the aspect with slop is really it's about poor quality content in the sense that it's actively bad for you to consume, right? So again, we're not talking about the difference between like reality TV and a documentary. You can have your views and opinions, but we're talking about videos and material that actually teaches incorrect information. So like you see the letter A on screen and it says D is for dog, right? Where you've got a complete disconnect. or you've actually got dangerous behaviors. So you've got a kid pulling a pan out of an oven hot with cookie sheets with no oven mitts
Yes.
on, right?
Yeah.
So it's either cognitively really bad or it's actually dangerous. And that's the slop category, really, that I'm fundamentally focused on, because that is all we're finding it all over YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, like all over these
It's tough.
platforms.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
You will find a
right. It's
lot.
all of them. And
Yes,
it,
especially with the new models, Slinky, that you can write a prompt and it's going to make a video animation. And sometimes it's like it's the the new current animation actually is for adults more than
yeah,
you have. If you are a mother, you need to watch what your kids are watching. It's
right.
not that easy anymore.
Right. And it looks like all the good stuff, right? So again, because of how these models are trained, you're as a parent, you might look over and be like, great, it's, ABC's at breakfast. And then you miss, real actual video that was up that is not up anymore, but I have screenshots of it. A baby takes a bite of an apple and this red bloody ooze comes out of its mouth. And it was a video that was ABC at breakfast. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So yes, as a parent too, you have to be so careful. And parents already have to
Yeah.
shoulder enough of all of the responsibility across all of the media for kids. So it's stressful for any parent to be in this situation.
Yes. You mentioned the illusion of polish. You want that creator is like this is the part of easily food because with the creation of the model that you can just with the prompt, you create something and they think it's funny and it's with the colors, it's flashy and it has a major effect. So, do you think it's lacking here policing and governing over this product, or how to to enforce it not only on parents because parents sometimes they just give the child advice while he's eating to watch something. How do you think we should avoid that, or how to discern this is illusion of polish or this is a good one?
Yes. The reality, which is not where I wish we are, but the reality of where we are is that it falls to the parents and the teachers, right? They're sort of the last mile protection for the kids. So just to acknowledge, like, that's the reality of where we are. And so helping parents and teachers with information, whether it's labels that say something was created with AI, just because something was created with AI does not mean it's low quality, but it gives parents a signal of, hey, you need to double check the source of where this is coming from. It's almost like if you think about journalism, right?
Yeah.
Where is the news story coming from? So that there are tools that we should be giving to parents to help them make decisions appropriately. But then on top of that, we do need to be thinking about the responsibility of the creators and the responsibility of the model creators and the tools, the people creating the tools. So for the creators, and I spend a lot of time talking with creators about what does it mean to be responsible? What is your responsibility? If you are creating content for this audience, what is your responsibility? Not everyone wants to adopt that, but doing what I can to talk about and teach people that. And then for the model creators, the challenge is not all of the models are in locations that there is jurisdiction. So if a model is created in the US government can potentially have some jurisdiction and create some responsibility.
Right.
But the US government can't do a lot about a model that's created outside of the US. And
Exactly.
so as much as I think the model creators, and some of them do some things, as much as I think they ideally should be responsible, the reality is that it's really difficult.
I know you are not a doomer for AI. You are actually pro AI, but you are actually an educational ethicist. So you advocate more about not just to have a responsibility, but not to abuse a model. Because actually, sometimes people are aggressively want to deliver something based on a trigger for them or a personal gains without having the responsibility or the conscious about the others. And actually, there is one part you mentioned in your chapter, which is uh, touched me a lot when you say the finite encoding resources for the child. Because most parents, unfortunately, they are not aware of it. They just want to give for too much love, and they think giving is too much is helpful, and it's damaging, and sometimes or has repercussion that they will deal with it later, or they will find it in terms of behavior that they will just notice it or deal with it. So can you explain the term and how parent can be conscious about it or can be aware of it with their children?
Yeah. The So kids, especially young kids under 8, even under, 5, are developing all of their cognitive abilities. And especially if you think, just let's take language learning, for example. There's lots of research that kids need to learn or hear 10,000 words to start to develop their language development, and it sets a ground for literacy, for all of these things. So they need to hear 10,000 words. That is
Wow.
hard enough for,
Yes.
for anyone to give the kid 10,000 quality words. And now there's a challenge of when you outsource some of that to video, there is a deficit that kids do not learn as well from video. There's lots of work that we continue to do to get smarter at that. But the reality is there's a deficit. So you're already starting to put yourself in a challenging situation. And then if the videos that they're watching have the wrong words, have, what are things mispronounced, or have word salad, or, I've watched videos of like the 50 states of the United States and it has like Louisiana instead of Louisiana, right? Just completely wrong information. And now you are wasting that child's encoding time and you're setting them backward, right? And so as soon as they start to see, if they see, here C is for cat, but there's not a cat on screen, or it's misspelled on screen.
So it's stick with them.
Yeah, you're encoding the wrong information. And then you're setting them back, so you have to undo that. And it feels like, maybe one moment's not a big deal. But for kids where every moment matters and they are learning every single moment, yes, as adults, we can laugh it off. We can be like, wow, that is so wrong.
This is a joke or it's sarcasm.
Yeah, that's not where kids are. And so again, then it's challenging because now you're putting the onus on the parents to make sure that there's good, high quality media in front of the kids that is going to help reinforce the things they need to learn.
So do you think that we should enforce platforms to mention if any animation happened, to mention like a disclaimer, this is underage or this is age factor, or to give as well the lyrics or whatever they're going to happen, or a synopsis, this is what this animation about, and mother has to review, or is like we need to make a panel to review it, and if it's reviewed, we pass it on, or what do you suggest how to handle this? Because actually, uh, like I have my nieces and they watch, and then one of their major problem with their mom, like she shut down their animation because they're teenager and they watch Japanese anime, and I have to admit it's I see it as adult animation. It is not. I'm not going to say that they are very upfront, even with sexuality, with things like in teaching, and it's totally aggressive to certain culture. We cannot accept it. I understand the anger of parents, but sometimes we need to have a middle ground, which is very difficult.
Yes.
Because this is actually what is flooding the platform. There is nothing else. This is the genre, and this is what they are all repeating and repeating.
Yeah.
What
Well,
do you
and
think?
you're
Yeah.
highlighting a challenge too, that every parent has different tolerance for what
Yes.
their kids watch.
Culture,
I see it
culturally. Yes.
culturally, personally. I see it, especially when you look at like 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds who are
Yeah.
really, some parents are okay with violence. Some parents are okay with romance. Some parents, right? It's all over the place. So the couple of things we can do, and it's very challenging. And if I had it solved, I would be doing it in a heartbeat. But one is giving parents information. And so whether that's, as you said, being able to make sure they have ways to review lyrics or to know what is happening or to know the trust
Correct.
of the source, there's
For
absolutely a
this.
piece of that.
Yes.
The other thing that actually I believe AI is really helping us potentially do, we're not using it this way yet, but a moderation. So how do you review content? Right? YouTube Kids, so their subset app is actually a moderated app, that there is content that is filtered into it based on moderation. Whether that moderation is good or bad is another conversation, but it's human reviewed. And when you have a platform like YouTube, which gets something like 500 hours of content uploaded per minute. Now, granted, that is not all for kids, but a percentage of that is, you cannot human moderate that much. AI can actually moderate. There are vision models, there are models. It's not foolproof. It's not 100% yet. And this is why I built tools to kind of play with this and see. And so there is a world where you could have platforms, you could have even a YouTube that is reviewing with some machine assisted measures content before it goes into a platform, which would in theory catch many of the things we are talking about when it comes to slop. That's the kind of stuff I would love to see us moving toward.
Me too.
It,
It's like,
oh,
no, children, but it's like, yes, yes,
yeah,
of course, because unfortunately, there is this euphoria, like, I built this, which is actually my next question to you, which is the authoritative screen. People think that I am going to use I built this with AI, and they are happy with it, but they doesn't understand the consequences of it. No matter, like, this is euphoria, like, I'm in the, like, I'm not behind. I'm able to do this. Look at my work, but their work is actually negative, or like with negative products. So, what do what you can say about the radical ownership, or that you mentioned, this excuse that's being used by people, like this phenomena that is flooding everywhere?
right. There is an aspect for us as humans to understand that we don't know everything. And I think this is true for creators, is to have some of that humbleness to recognize when you are creating with AI, especially given the likelihood of AI hallucinating, not adhering to prompts, all of these known, the
Yes.
bias, all of these known issues, understanding that we're not perfect, we don't have perfect knowledge, and being able to then have the tools to, when we create something, stop and say, what might I be missing? What might I not know? And there are ways that potentially you can actually use AI to find those blind spots for yourself. So if you are making something educational, right, being able to use these tools to research the principles, asking for links, right? So it's not hallucinating research studies for you either, but asking for doing a little bit of that homework. It's not that we're saying you need to go get a doctorate in education technology or something, but spending a couple of hours understanding how do you best teach, whether it's literacy, math, handwriting, any of these things. I did a video last year on potty training. It was this potty training song. And it's been a while since I've had to deal with potty training. I have a teenager. And so I went back and I went and researched what are the current methods, because I knew I didn't know that.
Of course.
So there's this aspect of just, if we could get humans to recognize
Exactly.
that and understand, here's how you can get that information. I think that would even go and understand the downside, the harm that you are potentially inflicting, especially when it comes to dangerous imitable behaviors. Like I have seen videos where it is telling kids, it's mirroring, it's okay to eat things that are poisonous.
Yeah, you
Those should
mentioned
just
the
never.
elderberry. Yeah.
Yeah, the elderberries. In that same video, the teacher, it's a photorealistic teacher. So now we're not even dealing with cartoons, we're dealing with photorealistic, which implies a certain level of gravitas. And the teacher also, she bites a whole pineapple, spines and all, like just right into it. Right? Just
Yeah.
behaviors that you don't want anyone to ever do. So I think if creators
And they
also
all mimic.
understood, yeah, if they
Mm.
understood the risk that they are potentially introducing as well, then you might feel more of that responsibility.
And the problem is not even with children when they go, to daycare or whatever. You cannot even. You need to know what they are going to watch in the daycare, because they will come and you will see just behavior, and you don't understand where this behavior comes from. And this needs to be. It's like we need to find a way. But even young mother, I'm sure they are struggling with it, because they doesn't know anything. They just becomes mother and they are happy with the new baby, but no one teach them, and animation is making it worse for them. You mentioned the discipline of restraint. You mentioned that AI often behave like an overaged animator with an infinite budget, crowding the frame with destruction. I can see this with the new model. Every week there is a new advanced, new flashy, make it move, you make it frames, you make it dance, you make it this action. How do you think we should advocate to young mothers or parent who has children to handle this? Because they are happy with AI and there is euphoria with AI. There is either doomers or uh, bit, like optimistic, but they need to have a balance when it comes to children. What do you want to tell them on how to handle this?
Yeah. There's so many people that I run into are either completely anti-AI and they're like, no, 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 you are a horrible person to be engaging with it. Or I run into a lot of people who are like, this is the most amazing thing ever. And it's like
Exactly.
incredible, right? And then I end up talking with people and people generally assume I'm one of the two as well. And I'm like, no, I have very conflicted feelings with it. There are things that I absolutely adore and think are amazing. And there are things that I really struggle with. But I keep learning. And I know that for me, the best way to influence the outcome is to be part of the conversation and to be engaging with AI and learning. And whether that means doing, very public forums like I'm doing, or it means with my own daughter or with my family, having conversations and experimenting with it. I hope all families, creators, everyone does this with this humility and this willingness to learn. And I think a lot of parents are in a challenging spot too, where they're afraid to experiment with it because they're also afraid of what their kids are doing with it, but they're afraid to experiment with their kids because they don't have all the answers and are afraid to be like, I don't know. I don't know how to use this tool. I don't know what could go wrong. And so for parents, I think there's a lot of getting in there and experimenting and understanding it for themselves. Because if they understand it for themselves, if they even are watching YouTube and see what slop content shows up for them, right, or on Instagram or whatnot, then they can start to think about what do they do? What are the conversations they have with their kid? Because even a 3-year-old, you can have a conversation about AI. It's a very simple conversation, but you can have that conversation and you start to build the learning.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult because actually, as we are divided either or, and actually there is a wide variety of people. People say, like, for me, I believe because I use AI, but it's magic when it comes to numeric and computing and even digital things. But when it comes to sensing and feeling, it's totally behind because it's in just one field. It's perfect and you can count on its results. And on the other hand, no, it's not, because it's not only about biases, it's missing meaning.
Yes.
And this is actually the distinction. If you can distinguish between the two, you will be able to handle AI to your benefit. But the problem, people use it as a magic wand and everything because it's amplified, and the fear, they are afraid to be left behind, to be left like, or told that you don't belong to us, as they just want to join blindly. And actually, this is where the people who's going to suffer the most of the effect of AI. And when it comes to kids, we have to be very, very strict when it comes to especially with children, because they, as you mentioned, they cannot even explain not their feeling or their understanding. It's still totally how to say, raw.
Right.
They cannot explain it. So, and even young mothers, they're not gonna understand it unless with behavior, unless with interaction with the child, not from one. So learning, they need to let their ego down, I guess, and start learning about the model, how to use it, and how to interact it with children. And is there any in US, for example, like any policies for daycare or schools on what animation to show and what not to show? There is rules or criteria?
There's very, very little. I mean, I would say, already we're seeing the government struggle to keep up with the speed at which things are changing. And so what's happening is we're seeing schools really just shut down and be like, no AI at all. And then never mind preschools. I mean, I feel like that's just a super challenging space. And then when it comes to animation, it's just so far, it's so far down the list of things to address that it's not getting addressed yet. Where we are seeing a little bit of it is there are some groups that are starting to raise awareness around things like YouTube and the slop that's appearing. It's not moved to the point of any sort of, that I've seen any sort of government intervention or rules. The most that exists right now is YouTube has policies about when content needs to be labeled AI. But in the case of animation, they're focused really on the could you mistake it for real as a human, as an adult? They're not yet, their policy is not yet at the point of thinking about harm for children. And so right now it says if it's animated, for you and me as an adult, we're like, yep, not real. For kids, that's
yeah,
right. And imitable behaviors and everything. And then it also, so there's some catch up even there that needs to happen. But we're still in the very early days of seeing the rules catch up.
Yeah, I see it very, very challenging because, like here in Mexico, I'm in Mexico, so most of daycare they play animation, especially when they are eating, just for kind of distraction on a big screen. And I'm not sure if parents are aware what type of animation, or is they give us is like they give them a list of like this week we're gonna play this and this and that. So I don't know if we should if this should be addressed as well by mother to ask when you apply to daycare.
Right.
Leave your child what is the program? What are you doing day to day? What he's going to see? Because it's very important, because you will see only behavior at home with your siblings or with you, and you don't understand where it comes from. You think
Yeah.
you are a
Even
good
just to
person.
ask,
Yes,
just to ask, how do you pick what shows? Because
yes,
there's so much good stuff available, including things created by AI, right?
yeah,
There's so much that it depends what is even their mechanism. If they're just like searching ABCs and then pushing go on the first thing, that's a very different situation than if they're curating from certain places and tying it even to curriculum that they're doing that week.
yeah. It's very, very challenging topic, because actually we didn't just pass the governing for adults. Like the
Yeah.
children are totally behind.
Right. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we don't have a governance about what adults are using or doing. So you mentioned one thing about like using AI again when writing a song for children. Like you say, this is a recipe to failure. Can you highlight it more or explain it more to everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The oops, sorry, hang on, dog
No,
noise.
that's good.
Okay. Um, I lost part of it. So can you just repeat the question? Sorry, my
You
signal.
mentioned that right, because now there is a new AI. I love it so much and I use it, but I'm an adult, like Suno AI to write music and songs. And you mentioned that writing a song for children is a recipe for failure.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, sorry about that. Gremlins in the internet, always fun. So the way most AI models are trained, as most of us know, is it has
Yeah.
consumed enormous amounts of information. And
Mm,
these models are prediction machines. So if I say twinkle twinkle, if you've grown up
it
around
makes you
American
sound.
nursery, right? You go think Little
Yeah.
Star. I always have to watch it because I don't know culturally how global Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is, right? But your brain auto-filled Little Star, right? You hear Twinkle Twinkle Little Star,
Yes.
and that is a very small scale of what these models are doing. They are essentially really fancy autocomplete models, and they're looking at. So if you ask an AI model for an alphabet song for kids, you are probably going to get, without any other prompting, some structure of like A is for apple, B is for ball kind of thing, because there's examples of that all over the world.
True.
And
In,
just,
in all countries, by the way.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
We
Whatever.
teach alphabet by song. Like I remember I taught my alphabet as a song just to easy memorizing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, even like the Greek alphabet has, right. There's all of these options.
Yes.
And because it's a prediction machine, it does A is for apple, right? And it kind of falls in. And sometimes that's harmless, but more often than not, it starts to go off the rails because of prompt adherence and all of these things. And it's got the entire world of alphabet, not any sense of what is quality. and what is filtered and what is a good form of this. And so then you end up literally, I've had it generate alphabet songs for me where it's like X is for a box of rocks. The X hides inside. And it'll say Q is for kangaroo. Like just insane that again, going back to like if a kid listens to that and if your kid came to you and was like, K is for kangaroo, you're like, what? Kind of thing. Or
Yeah,
Q is for
politically correct, but it's like linguistically wrong.
yeah, sorry. It's like Q is for kangaroo, not K is for right? Or if you heard K is for knife, it's like, well, when you're spelling knife, yes, but when you're talking about the sound, so if you just go to any of these LLMs and you say, write me an alphabet song, chances are it's going to go off the rails. It's going to be just poor quality. It's not going to be words that actually make sense for kids. So that example that we were talking about, the elderberry one, that is an alphabet structure where they said structure it as fruit. And so you had A is for apple, B is for banana. There's not a lot of fruit choices for E. And so they went to elderberry. And elderberry, and then the teacher, the photorealistic teacher, eats the elderberry. Elderberries raw are poisonous. They have to be cooked.
Yes.
And so this is what I mean of like, you not only end up with cognitively information, but you can end up with very dangerous information. And that's because these LLMs are just trained on the internet. They're not trained of what is good, what is pedagogically appropriate, what is safe. And until you give it a structure that tells it that information, that's where these lyrics and any sort of writing for kids, but lyrics especially, because you just see so much of it right now, it gets dangerous.
It's true because most of the songs, if not, there will be total disengagement. In turn, it will create a gap because AI is going to make it like rhyme. And to make it the rhyme, he will focus on this rhyming without the meaning. He just wants to, so it can sound off. It can sound maybe good for you as a melody, but it's like off when it comes to meaning.
Oh, yeah. It loves to force rhymes to the point of just nonsensical. Right. Which on some level I do appreciate, which is also funny because the LLMs have no concept of rhythm or meter, but they like force those rhymes.
Yeah, I totally, I can relate to it because with Suno, the concept when you tell him I'm writing a song, so he's going to help you write to end the last word the same, just to make it rhyming without having the sense of it to connect. So there will be always not a gap of disengagement. I totally, and it will be worse when it comes to children. Are you familiar with René Girard? Because he has the theory of we are a mimic, the mimicry. And he say that people we love to mimic because we are mimicry creators, and children is like sponge. They're going to absorb anything. So he actually supports what you were talking about, which is the difference of the concept and semantic structure. If it's wrong, it's going to not affect their cognitive ability. They're going to mimic it, and it's going to be anchored totally along their life. Not just a phase or not that you can correct it. Even if you correct it, you will know the difference. It's still anchored. Yeah. And it will become like a replica, like a foundation to replicate things upon it. And the problem, if it's wrong, everything is going to build up upon it. Every judgment, every decision they will make is going to be wrong. Yeah. Because the foundation was done wrong.
Yeah. So if you've ever driven in snow where it's deep enough that if you get caught in the tracks of the person before you can't get out of the tracks. And if you think about learning that wrong information forms a track, that to your point, getting out of that track is really hard. And it takes time to like dig it out and form new tracks.
It will take force and willingness. Is like it will need adult power because even sometimes we as adults struggle to move on. So like moving on it's still on its own.
It's very polite way to talk about our baggage, right? Our emotional baggage. Snow tracks.
It's so true. You know, back in when you were talking about like I read your chapter. I remember back in my not long time ago, I used to love Alice in Wonderland, and I used to watch this show. And my mom used to record it for us, so I can watch it over and over and over. And I fell in love with everything about it. But it was very well done because it has good messages. So it's like it help you to be curious and whatever. I don't know like what's happening with the animation today because it's not about curiosity, it's not about courage. It's about more to be open, but open too much. Everything is too much. So, what do you think? Because you work with Netflix and Sesame Street, how do you see that change is happening, and what is led this change? Because it happened before AI. AI is amplifying it. So, can you explain the shift or the causes that trigger this shift for this change and this engagement? Because animation mattered. It affected me much.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'll give you some thoughts. I don't have an answer to this, but definitely we are seeing everything is shifting. I think there's a natural evolution of storytelling and of styles and things that
But
does
do you
happen.
see it evolution or pivoting? Because we pivot the message for addressing children.
Well, and I think part of what's challenging is that there's so much more content now that I think the messages you're talking about are still there. There are absolutely creators who still like there's so many
Yeah.
different perspectives, but now we've got so many more perspectives that voices that have always been there can be drowned out, or themes that have been there can be drowned out. And now with the slop piece of things, it's even harder that anybody who's creating good, solid content is getting drowned out. Um, and I think there's definitely some other pieces that I think we're all still trying to untangle around kind of the pacing and the speed of content that probably has some roots into how social media has evolved, and it's shifted down into kids where we're definitely seeing edits happen a lot faster. There's a lot of debates over what's the right, how slow should a video be, how should storytelling, and I think there's not answers fully. Some of my colleagues might disagree and be like, "No, my way is the right way." But we're still evolving through a lot of that. And I think the challenge is really around discoverability. And if I have a parent have this sensibility and want this kind of content for my child, how easy or hard is it to find content that matches my needs? And we're in a period where it's really hard to find that. I think we actually have probably more storytellers than ever, and more really great storytellers than ever. And we're going to enable lots more. But right now it's so noisy that we can't see those folks coming through yet.
Is there any like tool or library to use to avoid the work slot trap? Is like for parent or for even the content creator that like I would love to create something, and I'm sure many will be in the same boat, but we want to be responsible. Like I'm
Yeah.
afraid to deliver. Is this the right message? Is this the right audience? So is there any way to help us not to fall in this trap?
Yeah. For parents, it's really hard. For the creators side of things, I think for parents, we're in this like know your sources, know where the content's coming from, and preview or watch with your kid at least to the extent that you can, or have an eye on things. For the creators, there are so many tools out there right now that are promising this like one shot, put in the prompt and like you get your video. And that is disaster on so many levels. And I can spend all day just like with examples of like these terrible videos that are like make $1,000 a day with one prompt kid videos. And
Yeah,
it's just
I hear
and
this
it's
too.
like, oh my God. And it just makes me so mad because also it's like, if I were making $1,000 a day making kids videos, I would not be telling you how to do it. It's,
Yeah,
it's like,
it's like all this, this is flashy titles,
right.
and they are actually a trap because and most of their tips are, with all respect, stupid.
Yeah. Oh, they're
Has
terrible.
nothing
Yeah.
related to reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's totally disengaged. But it's like we call them like honeypot.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Just to trap you and to open, and they are happy with clicks and whatever. But it's a waste of your time even reading them.
Yeah. Yep. And so instead, so what is a creator to do? I mean, this is why a lot of my work is focused on helping people slow down a little bit, understand what they don't know, understand how to prompt, because it is very possible to build good content with AI, but you have to know what you're doing. Are you going to build a Pixar short right now? Some sort of Oscar winning? Maybe not, but like you can build really reasonably good stuff, but you have to understand the different tools and moments in the pipeline where also you have to insert yourself to review what's going on. Because going back to what we were saying, like there are plenty of objective, very concrete things that AI can do. It can check my calendar for me. It can write code. It cannot make a number of these much more subjective or even creative decisions and even pedagogical decisions that are black and white, but it's just not trained on. And so we have to be the human in the loop. We have to be responsible and know what are the points that we are checking. And there's this, whole other thing of just these tools are designed for us to just be like, go, 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 and like outsource, right, the decision making. We have to fight that urge and know if I don't, I could cause harm. And so I need to be checking in at these points and I need to know which tools. And so I spend a lot of time teaching creators. I'm teaching teenagers this week how to use AI thoughtfully to create good stuff because there's not a lot of those voices right now.
It's true, but I totally agree with you on this. But you if we compare Sesame Street was a really successful show globally, not just in the US. Like I've been watching. I grew up in Egypt. I'm
Yeah.
Egyptian, so it's like I've seen it in Egypt, and like everyone in my generation. So it's been global show. Everyone with all the children watch it. What do you think the new animation missed this type of success? Because they are really short temporary. Like you watch them and you forget about them even.
Right.
They doesn't stay or anchor in your head. You just like scroll them, like a waste of time. What they miss to be successful, like
Yeah.
Sesame.
Yeah. A lot of these shows that we're talking about, so Sesame Street, Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, Bing, like these like
Big stars.
classics, these
Yeah.
great success
Cinderella,
stories.
you'll
Right.
see all the
They have so much development that goes into them and so many smart people working around it to understand not only what makes a good story, what makes it educational, but also doing research with kids to understand how do they respond to the different moments. And there's great resources around, if you wanted to develop through these traditional pipelines, what does it look like to do that? But it takes a long time. But the magic that distills out of that and the storytelling and the engaging with the child is what this flashy, fast stuff misses. And I think there's a lot of us who have been working on this this traditional forms of animation for a long time, where, if you think about the long tail of content, yes, there's a lot of this flash in the pan stuff that's going to be like, it'll have its moment and then it'll disappear. But there's the long tail of things that are going to find their homes. And I got to believe that like we as a society, we as parents are going to come back to like, okay, this is the good stuff. And this is the stuff that we need to elevate. But I think for those who are using these tools and are creating that, it's coming back to what makes a good story, what makes those elements, what makes a good character. It's storytelling. And this is what AI is not a storyteller. It's an autocomplete machine. It's a prediction machine.
Yeah.
Humans are great at storytelling. And I think when we find that intersection of using AI to amplify our stories, then we're going to have really neat things happening.
Because it should be acting like, in branding, when they brand something or make an advertising, they have to make not just personas, what type of audience they are delivering to. It's
Yeah.
like when you make a product or an advert for like a washing machine, like adults would use, it's not like you are making for chips that everyone is going to eat. You may have to make it fun. They need to address this one. We have Michael that he's mentioned something in the chat. It would be nice to actually have a good housekeeping seal for kids YouTube content, and then parent could use this as a filter. Actually, I would agree totally with Michael, and he say AI moderation with the right to challenge a red flag is urgently needed. But we need to have it actually for adults. The government is totally behind when it comes to AI due to speed. And he mentions that's a great point, how to parent have knowledge of the content their kids see at school. Because this is really matters because when not just animation. Children is like as a sponge, they will mimic behavior. And if they get anchored, if it's flashy and they are really laughing, and everyone, all the children in the daycare were like as a group watching, and everyone is laughing, everyone will laugh. If one person laugh, all the
Right.
children will laugh. And this screen time or this show would be anchored as a behavior that if I make it, everyone will laugh and be happy. And this is very damaging if it's not moderated properly, not just by parent, by school as well. This needs to be importantly addressed. So, Carla, what do you think? Should we build an app to make to review content animation, to make like censoring machine for parents and say, okay, put this model here, and we get the script and frame by frame and see if it's appropriate?
Yeah.
This is going to be
This
successful app.
I struggle with this so much because there is a graveyard of attempts to figure out how do you organize and pass information, especially with YouTube, because this is
This
not an AI problem. This has always been a much larger. There's just so much content. I do have hope that AI moderation is going to help, but I
but
think we don't have a clear answer yet.
uh, they are dealing still with hallucination and the meaning and semantic. For adults it's like in different language, like AI, for example, in Arabic, or like I did with interview with Julia, and she mentioned she's in Brazil, and it's the same. Once culturally, the dialects, the idioms, it gets totally ostracized, like it doesn't take care of it, so it missed the point. It's literally grammatically correct, but semantically or meaning it means nothing.
Yeah.
And this is actually a major flaw, because it was trained. AI is very good when it's data driven, but when it's any feelings or cognitive or any other type intelligence, like social
Any
intelligence,
nuance.
horrible.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people when use it as therapists, it's like it's a disaster form. And I totally understand the hurdles parents are dealing with when it comes to children. It's extremely difficult
It's very difficult. Yeah.
because they think that like animation is honest and pure, and
Yeah.
but it's not the reality.
Yeah. I'll tell you just a funny story that happened yesterday. So I'm teaching these teenagers how to use AI in creative media, and so creating videos and everything. And I was introducing myself, and I have a slide up where it's a picture of me, and then I have a picture of my dog. So I have this old English bulldog who is just adorable and hilarious. And the picture's up of her, and they all look at it and they go, "That's real, not AI." And part of me was like so happy that they asked, right? Because that shows some media literacy, some digital
Yeah.
literacy training that they're starting to learn to ask. And part of me was so sad that they also have already learned to be so skeptical of like everything. Now, granted, we're in an AI class. It's totally fair to be like, are you pulling one on us? But it was really interesting just to see their immediate reaction. And I was sharing with that there was just I think last week, there was a storm in Idaho that flooded a neighborhood, and there was these chunks of ice floating through the neighborhood. And I was on social media, and one of the videos comes up, and I literally stopped, went over and searched it to find a news article to
To
see if
see if
it was
it's not
real or
AI.
not, because it was not from a reputable news source. It was somebody posting, whether it was in their neighborhood or whatnot, but I didn't know the source. And so I had to go, and part of me was annoyed that it's like to figure out news, I have to go check sources. But also I was like, that's the world we live in now.
Unfortunately, but humans, we believe something once we give it a meaning, but once we lose trust of it, it will lose its meaning, and I think it's going to fall. And I believe that AI is going to hit a wall when it comes because it's breaking the trust. Not just about the content. It's like even with people you will find on Substack, on Medium, on all the platforms, even for us adults, you will see article and you start to skim it. You will see this and it's not worth it. And with time, you realize, no, 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 no. And the scrolling and addiction is going to reach a point that you're done. You're fed up. Children cannot do this because they are just watching it. It's like if it's colorful, if it's playful, they are happy and it's going to be a load on parents. They're already having hard time dealing with screen time. Imagine you need to adjust the screen time and the content within the screen time.
Yeah.
Like you
Well,
have to
and
watch.
and kids are still forming all of their mental models of all of
Yes.
this stuff. So, again, like at least for us as adults, we can stop and think about our time management. We can think about what is this doing, all of these things. And we know generally fact from fiction. But a child is developing all of so their mental model of how to use screens is developing alongside when they don't have regulation and
Yeah.
the executive function to make these decisions. So it's a very challenging space.
So if you want to share a tip to every parent or to teacher or in daycare or handling or anyone dealing with children or teenager,
Yeah.
what do you share with them? What do
Yes.
you advise?
So, so I wrote an article on Substack and LinkedIn probably 2 months ago now called "Everyone Poops Except Claude," and it is
That's very good.
it's,
Please share
and,
it.
right. I will, and honestly, I will say it is probably the best conversation, like opening into talking with kids, talking with each other to just acknowledge like this is a machine, but it's a machine that is, does things that makes it feel human. And so the whole article was about like, how do you recognize anthropomorphization? And it was funny because one of the tips I had in it was like, don't say please and thank you to when
To the
you're
machine,
prompting
exactly.
to the machine, just drop that. And it was so funny
It's
because
waste
it
of
said,
talking as well.
right, it's a waste of tokens, which was really funny. But there was a bunch of people who were like, I will lose my humanity if I stop saying please and thank you. So I'm going to keep saying please and so people
The
were
problem
worried about
is like
that.
we are used to it. It's part
Right.
of our language, and you
Yeah.
don't want to change it.
Right. And so it was just the whole article was really interesting how it was received, but I think it hit on something for all of us of just thinking about what is our relationship with these machines and what is the language we use around it. So do you ever say he for Claude versus it? Do you like how do you feel like Claude yesterday literally said to me, I really enjoyed working on this with you. And I was like, what? like, like, like you can't. But so then I can stop and I can show that to my daughter and be like, what do you think of this? Right? Like, should it even be saying that? So using that entry frame of everyone poops except Claude to start talking about this is a machine, but it looks and does things to
I think we
act
should.
human. I think it's a
Yeah.
really great entry point.
Yes. Do you follow Samuel Ingworth?
Yes.
He had yes, he has slow AI. He just finished published a book. He's like I'm gonna maybe have an interview with him about it.
Oh,
But
good. I
he
love
is
Sam. Yeah.
actually writing an article which is when he put it, AI is not conscious, and I hope everyone read it because we
Yeah.
need to understand that it is not conscious. It's just a computational
The
machine
tool.
that is going to get totally protective, only deal with data and nothing more. It has no
Yeah.
meaning, it has no feeling, and no matter how intelligent it should be, but it's it's just marketing and hype. We need to focus on this one. And the more you talk about it, people think, "Oh, you are a doomer," and no, we need to be realistic
Yeah. There's a
and
great
distinguish. Yes,
Yeah, there's a great Melvin Kranzberg has his first law of technology. The quote is technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral.
it's agnostic.
And it's amazing because it's like it's a tool. This is a tool, right?
Yeah,
And it is going to magnify my intent. And so if my intent is to use it either naively or, poorly, it's going to magnify that. If I'm using it for good, I can magnify it for that. And so I think there's a lot of these versions of this conversation emerging right now to really understand this as a tool and how do I frame my interactions with it as a tool.
okay, so back to your topic. So it's like when it comes to the pipeline of whatever the work slop we are dealing with, do you see any damage on children? Okay, not just about the semantic things, like any atrophy in cognitive uh, ability or any problem that's going to be totally like I'm not going to say handicap, but it's going to prevent them to move on with their life.
Yeah, I'd say this is a place where it's rapidly evolving and there's a lot of concern. So just, the outsourcing of cognitive reasoning, and is it premature? I keep thinking about just math, simple math, like learning your multiplication tables versus using a calculator, right? You could learn to use a calculator without learning multiplication tables or sort of basic maths, but you're going to be more effective using a calculator if you understand basic math and you kind of understand when it gets engaged in everything.
To verify your answers.
Right? Same as
You do calculus and you check it with a calculator.
Right. And same as, when Google really came out, the conversation, there was a lot of concerns of like, I can just Google the answer, our kid's going to learn. And education shifted a little bit more toward well, if you can Google the answer, maybe the teacher is asking the wrong questions. And so the nature of questions shifted and sort of how we engage with Googling information and everything shifted. I think we are in that period now where it's like, well, when you have a tool that can essentially do a huge part of the thinking for you, when is the right time to introduce that tool? How much of that thinking do you need to learn to do on your own? And then how do you learn how to use it appropriately in various times? And especially for kids, I think we're all very concerned that if you're just handed this too soon without being taught how to think through when is the best time to use this, what does it do, what is it doing? And I don't think we have clear answers of what does that mean. One of the activities I love doing is actually just, considering I want to like build an app. What are all the ways I could use AI to build that app? And then talking through what's the pros and cons of each of those approaches. We need activities like that to help teach all of us, quite frankly, kids included, how do we make appropriate decisions of when to engage this and how do we keep this engaged and not just going go, 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 right?
Exactly. For parents who has children like with ADHD or who are late in talking or lagging in speech, or they have this problems that they need help to get over it. Sometimes they lean to not just, I'm not gonna say AI, but it's like programs or whatever. If it's not monitored or it's not applied with, you know, with a supervisor, like
With diligence, yeah.
doctor or anyone to tell them yes for this, no for that, they can really do damage to a child.
Yeah. And also on the flip side, I think these are tools that could open doors and make life so like it could do a ton. And I'm hearing stories already from parents with kids with various needs that they are unlocking tools and abilities. But
under
again,
supervision, they are not on their own. They didn't take yes.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the place. But again, it's another place where it's like our research, our practices, everything is not caught up to understand. And how do you guide people through this? So if a parent in this situation happens to have, medical caregivers who are up on it and are able to help guide in different directions, that's great. But that's not the vast majority. They're discovering it from somebody else on YouTube who's like, hey, I tried this thing. And yeah.
It's very, very difficult. And especially for young parents who will have children or maybe one or two or three children, they will always resort to animation.
Yeah.
Most of the time to keep them quiet and this is actually a problem. So to wrap up our session, your chapter is very, very important because you make it with example that it's really will touch every mother or every father or a parent dealing with children. And I highly recommended everyone to read it. So do you have any tips or anything or any point that I missed that you would like to highlight or offer to our readers?
Yeah. I mean, if I just think about the things we've talked about, right, there's the aspect of understanding like what we don't know. And so if you're creating content for kids with AI,
humility,
yes, having humility,
yes, have
and
humility.
Right. And as well as when you're engaging with it and like get in there and experiment and play with it and talk to kids, have these everybody poops except Claude conversations. I think those are the two things that I really think about for people to get in there and learn and be willing to learn both how these tools work as well as what they don't know. It's fascinating, super challenging time. Yeah.
It is actually with the speed we are dealing with and everything. And the problem, we live in an era that we commoditize everything, even our feelings. And now we are getting to the kids space. This is the sad part of it, of the technology
Yeah.
that is like, it's not just used, it's abused.
Yeah.
And we need to be careful because it's awareness, and this is our responsibility. We cannot blame on third party or the government to say handle it for us. No, this is our role. So if you are a parent, please watch out what your kids are watching, because it will affect their behavior. It's going to affect them on long run, and in their social encounters. It will happen. So read the Carla chapter, because it will help you in it. And if anyone has a question, it's like we had only from Michael, but it's Carla. Thank you so much. It's like
Yeah, thank
you're
you.
really, really important.
Thank you. And like I said, thank you for all you're doing to make
Mm,
these possible.
I really enjoyed actually reading your work. Like from woman to woman is like I really happy to see more women is like engaging and having a voice and raising it and sharing it with everyone. No, your insight is extremely helpful to every parent. A must read actually. Yes,
Thank you.
and share this article with me so I can put it
Yes, I
here.
will.
Very important, yeah. And yes, um, be vigilant with when it comes to your kids. This is
Yeah.
actually my advice to everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much, Carla.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you have anything you want to say to anyone?
Oh my gosh, I think I've said it all. God, if they're still listening to me by now, we're
Yes. No, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, and good luck with your daughter. I'm sure she's happy with you, and we need more parents to bring healthy, stable children to society.
Right?
It's not just we want the stable one. It's like totally healthy inside out.
Right? Exactly. Takes a lot of conversations. Yep. Talk with your kids.
Yes,
So,
talk to your kids, and happy parenting to everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much, Carla.
thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.